This is The Art of War, the essential translation of the classic book of life, written by the legendary Sun-TZU. This is edited, translated, and it will have an introduction, all written by the translator John Minford. This week and for the next 3 weeks, I will be going ahead and talking about The Art of War, the abridged plain version, translated by John Minford. And today we'll be going ahead and doing chapters or essays 1 to 4. Please do note that there are two versions, the plain text and the one with the original commentary written back in like not ancient times, but like the olden days, long before John Minford was probably alive. And I'm going to be summarizing both of them, mostly because the commentary is just the plain text with the commentary. So let's get this started with. Now here, this is The Art of War. First up, Chapter 1, The Making of the Plans. Here, Sun-TZU himself has went ahead and stated that the war itself is something of like an yin and a yang. It is a place. I made that yin and yang up, but he'll eventually do talk about it. He talks about it as like a life and a death, where it is just the only road towards a survival and the only way to prevent your own extinction. This is something that you have to go ahead and ponder very, very carefully. Now, he also goes ahead and prescribes 5 fundamentals for this kind of deliberation. And obviously, this will probably sound a bit better in Chinese, but we are here for the English one. And those 5 conditions he lists are 1, the way to heaven, 3, earth, 4, command, and 5, discipline. He then proceeds to go ahead and explain each one much and more as efficiently, such as the way. The way itself, it's like he goes ahead and causes the men to be of one mind. Basically, he wants them all to be in like a little hive mind so they can all act in accordance and do a lot together. What one cannot do by himself, many can do together. Now, obviously, you can go ahead and think of this as like an army. When you have like the idea of having brothers in arms that they're worth fighting with and worth fighting for, and you can like survive with them, that's something that you think is worth for, and you fight even better then. Now, when he was talking about the heaven, he was mostly talking about, as I mentioned earlier, the yin and the yang. The yin and the yang. Like here, the yin and the yang itself goes ahead and talks about the cold and the hot and the cycle of seasons. Basically, he's trying to tell us that you have to go ahead and think about the seasons, how they go ahead and change, how you must adapt to each one. And then when he said earth, he meant like your territory, where you are fighting, and the ground you're fighting on. Are you fighting on top of the hill, or are you fighting at the bottom of the hill? How far away from the enemy are you? Or are you suspiciously close? And are you prepared? Are you in open ground, or are you in closed ground? Because this is a very important thing, apparently, in warfare. A command is literally the idea of the general. If you have a good general, you can have probably a good army too, because one with a good general, but one with a okay army that's trained very well, but like a terrible general cannot do anything because they have to listen to the general's commands. But the general has no commands that are actually worthy enough to succeed. So if they follow it, they will go ahead and utterly fail. So a commander needs to have the wisdom, the integrity, the compassion, the courage, and the strength of it all, and the severity of it all too. Discipline is how the military works. You need a good leader, but you also need a good military. If you have a good general, but you don't have like a very well-trained army, such as like ones who were just conscripted and like they were not given any military training, they would have to go ahead and learn this organization. They would have to go ahead and follow the chain of command with the leader, with the one with the highest on top, answering to no one except the king or the president or the leader of the country itself. And yeah, that's it. That's literally all for all 5 of them. And every commander is aware of those 5 fundamentals, and they go ahead and you have to ask yourself these questions, such as which ruler has the way, which general has the ability, and on which side is the discipline more effective, that kind of thing. All of that is apparently important stuff when it comes to going ahead and talking about all this. And then, of course, here we have our commentary of the making of the plans. Now, in the making of the plans here, the commentary, we have a lot of these commentaries from the old people. We even have one from SUN-TZU, as he says, the Marshall Treaty says, do not mobilize troops in the winter or summer out of love for the common people. That's true. Mostly, now what Cao Cao is saying here is that summer and winter are the extreme versions of heat and cold. Now autumn is like a mild version of the winter, whereas the spring is like a mild version of the summer. And that makes sense. That's like the perfect time. We humans are moderate creatures. We humans are here in the moderate times, and we humans are here moderately. We do not like the extreme temperatures. Now, Charles is just going ahead and adding on to this. Then we also have translate our own translator's commentary, where he goes ahead and talks about a bunch of books. We even have like the book of 庄子, where they go ahead and comment about the heaven and the earth, such as this: look at distinction in the light of the way, and the duty of the sovereign subjects will be clear. Okay, next up, we're going to have to go ahead and talk about chapter 2. This is going to be a very long video, so bear with me. Chapter 2 itself is called The Waging of War. Now here, he's talking about how you go ahead and end wage war. Oh, duh, obviously, but like literal specific advice included here too. Now, what do I mean by that? Here, he's going ahead and talking to us about the basics of the army organization. For an army of 1,000 and the 4 horse with chariots and 1,000 of the high armored wagons, like he goes ahead and talks about the provisions and goes ahead and gives you a hypothetical example where they're like 1,000 soldiers, 4 of them, there are 4, you have like 4 horses that are chariots attached to them, and they can go really, really fast for now, and that you also have very well protected wagons. And for the 100,000, you even have an additional 100,000 like mail clad soldiers, and you even have enough provisions for 400 miles. So he goes ahead and describes the situation that you can just go home, you have expenses at home, and you have expenses at the front, and you can go ahead and have to deal with everyone, like the repairs and things. And in war, he's basically saying victory should be very quick. Now, you should probably do it so quick that nobody loses enough morale to think that, hey, I need to stop fighting. If you go ahead and try to toy with the enemy, you will go ahead and end up not being in a state of good ideal, because your men are very tired. Tired men are not good fighters, and well-fed and rested men that have high morale and high spirits can fight on. As morale is very low, it is more likely that you are surrendering. But if morale is very high, it's more likely that you are going to go ahead and fight to the death. He goes ahead and even mentions the fact that a skilled general and a skilled warrior would go ahead and do no more than 2 provision restockings for his men from the home country. Instead, the rest of the provisions will be coming from the literal from the enemies, from the capturing of the supplies of the enemies, where you'll go ahead and take them from the enemy supplies instead. Now, how does this work? You would go ahead and ask, well, you live off the land, and then whatever you capture from the enemies, you don't destroy. Such as soldiers that you've captured from the enemy, you would not kill them, unless they go ahead and try to rebel against you, but you go ahead and try to integrate them into your military, so that they go ahead and essentially switch sides. Now, you might be saying, but they might be not willing. Not willing ones will have to die. The ones who are willing, they will be conscripted, and well, they will be very, very effective. Also, the food and provision and those kinds of things, they'll all be distributed towards the men. And then he goes ahead and talks about how this morale itself goes ahead and makes things don't work out. Now, here's a good example from history. The Roman Empire itself was able to expand very quickly, and because that they did not go ahead and pillage anything. Oh, sure, they pillaged stuff, obviously, but they didn't actually destroy anything. They made sure everyone finished the war first, and then if the surrendering country did not wish to relinquish their soldiers, they will be crushed to oblivion. But usually, though, they would be allowed to be given the opportunity to become Roman citizens, and as a result, also help the soldiers from their military would help the Roman soldiers, and eventually you would go ahead and figure out that they can integrate the military, and they were able to conquer and expand even further and further. Now, war prizes victory, and is not a protracted campaign. Now, the wise general is a lord of destinies. He holds the nation's piece of peril in his hands. So all the playing pieces of a war, of like an entire nation, depends on the actions of one general. Next up, we have the strategic offensive. Here, we have this. In chapter 3, we have the strategic offensive. This is the title of the chapter, Strategic Offensive. Now, the strategic offensive itself is that in war, better to take a state intact than you go ahead and destroy it. This is technically, he's going ahead and talking more about the assimilation of people and armies and states into your empire instead of mass destruction of it. Because once you go ahead and destroy a state, that there's no use of there was no point in conquering it. There's no point in conquering a state if you're going to go ahead and destroy it into oblivion if you're not going to use it. It's not going to be a useful part of your empire if it's destroyed. Now, what you should do is that once you've conquered a state, you should go ahead and keep it intact, or at least intact enough so that it is useful enough. Now, how this works is that once you have it inside your control, you can use it to your own will. And then you should go ahead and assimilate the people inside there well. You should treat them well too. Don't treat them like terribly. Don't go ahead and destroy them. Don't go ahead and try to kill them. Don't threaten them. Or threaten them a little bit, but just enough to make sure that they listen to you. And with that, you have additional resources to your own empire. You have additional soldiers that you can use in your battles. You have additional food and water that you can also use in your battle. You have more provisions in your battle. And you also probably have a better workforce in there too. Probably something that your original empire was lacking. So, yeah. He also goes ahead and mentions that the highest form of warfare is that the ability to defeat your opponents with only words. There's the best kind of war. The best kind of wars and the best kind of battles can be won with just words. You can go ahead and win battles without even starting anything. You can defeat the enemy with strategy. You have to go ahead and have good strategy, and you have to have a good plan. Now, people might go ahead and see what your tactics are. They might go ahead and see that kind of stuff, but they cannot guess what your strategy is. Once you have a good strategy, you must go ahead and make sure that you work it out too. And he also kind of discourages alliances. Because alliances, well, at least back in ancient China, were very fickle in things, and that it just benefited one person and the other too. Just make sure that they also benefit someone else definitely first before you go into an alliance. To go ahead and make sure that you can confirm that this will help you, and they will still also help them when you can make the alliances. This kind of mutual kind of thing is what's keeping us in mind. He also goes ahead and mentions that the lowest form of war, unlike the highest form of war where you can win the battles without even drawing a sword, is to go ahead and attack the cities. Siege warfare is only a last resort. Only when the enemy himself have went ahead and went inside a city do you go ahead and proceed to do siege warfare. If any other option has been exhausted, you go ahead and siege the city. You go ahead and stay around it and make sure nobody can go ahead and get out and try to start them out. And he goes ahead and mentions that sieges should go ahead and only last 3 months to start the preparations. Making all the siege war machines should only take 3 months, maybe an additional 3 months to go ahead and pile all the ramps with the dirt ramps. And a general who cannot master his own anger and order his troops out like ants, sending one in the street to their deaths without taking the city, this is the calamity of a siege warfare, because siege warfare definitely does take a toll on the people. He goes ahead and even goes ahead and talks about using small forces to go ahead and infiltrate stuff, aka he's talking about spies. He goes ahead and the general should have complete obedience of his troops. And you should go ahead and remember, he also mentions that you should remember the 5 essentials that he talked about before, like the way, he goes ahead and talks about the way and the stuff and like that, but here he goes ahead and talk about know when to fight and when not to fight, understand how to deploy large and small numbers, when to go ahead and use like massive armies and when to use small infiltrating forces, how officer men who share a single will, basically go ahead and make them a hive mind, and be ready for the unexpected, and have a capable general unhampered by his own sovereign. Now, these are the 5 essentials that he goes ahead and points towards victory. He basically goes ahead and tells you, hey, you must know your enemy, you must know when to use your soldiers, and how many of them. You must be able to have a good, smart brain, and you must be able to go ahead and have all of them be willing to die for each other. He must also be very self-aware, because he who knows self, he knows himself. The one who knows himself best, but he knows nothing about the enemy, will suffer one defeat for every victory. And he who knows neither self nor the enemy, who doesn't know about his own brain and how his capabilities, and he doesn't know his own enemies, will go ahead and fail every battle. So basically, winning and losing is better than just losing every time. And now we're finally here in the final chapter that I'm going to be summarizing right now, and that is the chapter 4. Time to talk about the forms and the dispositions. And the forms and dispositions here is that we have to go ahead and continue on our journey. Here, masters and dispositions. We're talking about how one can achieve defenses and invulnerability in defenses. Here, we're talking about defenses. He mainly talks about defense in the sense of warfare and how you go ahead and ensure your own invulnerability. And while you go ahead and make the enemy vulnerable as much too. Invulnerability goes ahead and rests with itself, and vulnerability rests with the enemy. Now here, this is a skillful warrior that can go ahead and achieve his own invulnerability, but he can never bring about the enemy's vulnerability. He goes ahead and says that one can know victory and yet not achieve it. And invulnerability is literally just a defense, where you go ahead and you defend yourself from the vulnerability of an attack, while you go ahead and try to destroy the invulnerability of another of your enemy to turn them into vulnerable creatures. Now, a skillful defender, as he goes and calls it, basically a warrior that can go ahead and is really good at defending himself, and a general who can really good at creating defensive positions, goes ahead and he says this, I'm quote here, hides beneath the ninefold earth. A skillful attacker moves above the ninefold heaven. Basically, what he's saying is the defender himself is great at defending. He can hold out as long as possible, whereas the skillful attacker will be able to just jump over it and climb over it. Now, once you have these two in one combination working together, will you have a great defense? You have a great protection, you have a great defense, and you also have a great victory. You have a great person who can go ahead and destroy the vulnerability of the others, and all of that intact as well, as intact as much as you can get. Here you can foresee the ordinary victory of the common man, and that is no easy thing to do, basically. There's nothing easy about that at all. Because he goes ahead and talks about this as victory in battle, you should be a bit more humble about it, because one skill is it's not their actual skill, it's a bunch of teamwork that works together too. And it's also not just skill, it's mostly based on luck, terrible stupid luck. Once you go ahead and roll something, you go ahead and get the chances of something, you go ahead and make sure that those chances work out for you. You want those chances to be as high as it for you, and sheer dumb luck and good strategy and good commandment, you could go ahead and win anything that you would wish for. He goes ahead and says that the victorious army goes ahead and wants to win first and wants to fight later. If you can win without fighting, that is the best, because when one can not fight, they should do so, because fighting itself is tiring and nobody wants to do it at all. You would rather be in the peaceful confines of a home than be in the front lines of an enemy waiting to die. And then he goes ahead and talks about 5 steps towards war. He goes ahead and tells us about, first one, the measurement. Second of all, it was estimation. Third one, it was calculation. That's not a P, that's a T. Calculation. The fourth one was comparison. And the fifth one being victory. Obviously, these are just the 5 steps towards winning. And if you can manage to get those steps in the correct order and in the correct way, then you will be able to win. The earth determines the measurement, your situation. The measurement defines the estimation, where you go ahead and estimate your chances of winning. Calculation is where you go ahead and make those estimations better by refining those estimations into actual things you can go ahead and think of. Comparison is to compare that to the odds so that you can choose the tactics that will probably be the best for you. And then the comparison goes ahead and determines victory, because if you compare it correctly, that means you have calculated correctly, and if you calculate correctly, that means you have estimated correctly. And if you estimated correctly, that means you have measured correctly, and that means you have won your victory. A victorious army is like weighing a scale correctly. And that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this very, very long summary of chapter 1 to 4, or essays 1 to 4 of The Art of War, written by SUN-TZU in the John Minford translation. And I hope to see you guys soon. Until next time, 希望好，peace. Bye bye.